गुड मॉर्निंग एवरीवन। गुड मॉर्निंग बेटा। आ जाइए सारे लोग फटाफट फटाफट ज्वाइन हो जाए। आज आज हम मैराथन में भाग लेने वाले हैं। लंबी रेस रहेगी, है कि नहीं? लंबी रेस रहने वाली है। आज हमारे इंडियन इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट के थ्री चैप्टर्स कौन से सर? प्री इंडिपेंडेंस पीरियड, पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस पीरियड एंड इंडियन रिफॉर्म्स आफ्टर 1991। ये तीनों को ये तीनों को एक बार वन गो में क्या करेंगे, हम रिवाइज करेंगे। और एक जल्दी से सारे बच्चे ज्वाइन हो जाए। और एक हम शुरू करेंगे आज का लेक्चर। आज संडे है, सो व्हाट बेटर वे टू यूटिलाइज अ संडे, है कि नहीं सर? इससे अच्छा तरीका नहीं हो सकता संडे यूटिलाइज करने का। है कि नहीं? आप लोग भी बैठ जाइए, अपनी चाय कॉफी जो भी लगता है सब लेके बैठ जाइए। बॉर्नवीटा आई होप अभी तो कोई बॉर्नवीटा पीता नहीं होगा, है कि नहीं? चलिए, तो विल स्टार्ट अप विद अ रिविजन। हाँ जी। कहाँ गई सर ये फाइल? खुल रही है, खुल रही है, खुल रही है। राइट। यस, आ गई सर। चलिए, गुड मॉर्निंग एवरीवन। गुड मॉर्निंग। Welcome to Unacademy. My name is Saurabh Jaiswal. I'll be an educator for economics. Right, let's crack it with CBSE guys. A very brief introduction. A very brief introduction about me. I'm a faculty of economics and accounts. I've been teaching at 11th, 12th, and as well as in C Foundation. And it's been more than 2 years now. And one belief will always remain constant. One belief will always remain constant. That is conceptual learning. Right? हमारा फोकस हमेशा हमेशा किस पे रहने वाला है? हमेशा रहने वाला है सर कंसेप्चुअल लर्निंग पे। और एक लॉजिक्स को फॉलो करना। किसे फॉलो करना? लॉजिक्स को फॉलो करना। और एक यहाँ पे बड़े बड़े सब वादे नहीं है। यहाँ पे सिर्फ क्या है? यहाँ पे सिर्फ और सिर्फ लॉजिक्स है, प्योर लॉजिक्स। ठीक है, इफ यू गेट दोज यू गेट एवरीथिंग। Right, if you get those you get everything. My teaching is very simple. ठीक है, I have not put out much of information. Right? बस एक ही चीज है बस। This is it. This is the core of everything. Right? This is the core of everything. चलिए, हाँ बच्चा, अगर आप फर्स्ट टाइम अन अकेडमी पे आए हो and you're watching it for the first time and you don't know what is an academy, so let me enlighten you Unacademy is an ऑनलाइन लर्निंग प्लेटफॉर्म। ये क्या है? ये एक ऑनलाइन लर्निंग प्लेटफॉर्म है। यहाँ पे यू गेट टू लर्न फ्रॉम टॉप एजुकेटर्स, ठीक है, ऑल ओवर द इंडिया, राइट अंडर वन रूफ। अब सारे सब्जेक्ट्स एक ही जगह पे कर सकते हो। यू डोंट हैव टू गो एनीवेयर एल्स। ठीक है, हमारे जो भी सब्जेक्ट है 12th सीबीएसई के, आप सारे के सारे सब्जेक्ट्स आप कर सकते हैं right under one roof. All right. Now, what you can do, you can take advantage, ठीक है, take advantage of our free lectures, ठीक है, free demo lectures which are available on YouTube and as well as on the Unacademy Plus, on what? On the Unacademy special classes. So these are what YouTube and special classes are what? These are free resources. These are what? These are free resources. You can take advantage of those and you can get a taste of Plus. Now, what is Plus? Plus is a type of subscription that you can get. There are two types actually. एक प्लस है, एक आइकॉनिक है। ठीक है, एक क्या है? एक प्लस है और एक आइकॉनिक है। एक प्लस है और एक आइकॉनिक है। ठीक है, इधर यू कैन टेक प्लस और आइकॉनिक। दोनों के क्या बेनिफिट्स है हम देखते हैं। both have both have the tremendous benefits when it comes to getting a competitive edge, right? सबसे पहले सबसे पहले you get daily live classes. In Plus you get daily live classes. You get to interact with the educator. Okay, you get to interact with the educator. You get daily live classes. ठीक है सर, हमारी प्लस क्लासेस हमेशा रियल टाइम में चलती है। इंटरेक्शन भी आप कर सकते हैं थ्रू चैट बॉक्स, राइट? एंड ये सर इतना इतना ऑन पॉइंट रहता है, इतना रियल टाइम रहता है। मैंने यहाँ पे कुछ बोला, विद इन मिली सेकेंड्स वो आपके स्क्रीन पे रहेगा। देर इज हार्डली एनी टाइम, देर इज हार्डली एनी लैग। आपने कोई क्वेश्चन टाइप करके पूछा, तुरंत मेरे स्क्रीन पे आएगा, तुरंत मेरे स्क्रीन पे आएगा। और एक ये सब क्या है सर? ये सब क्या है? ये सारे बेनिफिट्स है, ये सारे बेनिफिट्स है अनअकैडमी प्लस। देन यू गेट टू अटेंड लाइव पोल्स एंड क्विज़ेस। ठीक है, आप लाइव क्विज अटेंड करिए। क्या अटेंड करिए? लाइव क्विज अटेंड करिए। क्यों? बिकॉज जो हमने पढ़ाई की है उसे इवैल्यूएट करना भी तो जरूरी है कि नहीं? उसे इवैल्यूएट करना भी तो जरूरी है। तो कैसे इवैल्यूएट करेंगे, कैसे टेस्ट करेंगे? थ्रू लाइव पोल्स एंड क्विज़ेस। साथ ही साथ यू कैन गिव टेस्ट सीरीज, यू कैन गिव टेस्ट सीरीज ऑल सब्जेक्ट्स। ठीक है, एनालिसिस कर सकते हैं। आपको टाइम मैनेजमेंट का पता चलेगा। आपको पता चलेगा आप कौन से सब्जेक्ट में बेटर परफॉर्म कर रहे हैं, कौन से इसमें यू नीड मोर प्रैक्टिस। ठीक है, ये सारी चीजें आपको, यदि एनालिसिस जो है ये बाकी लोगों से आप कितना बेहतर परफॉर्म कर रहे हैं, ये सारा एनालिसिस आपको कहाँ से? सर थ्रू प्लस। ये सारा एनालिसिस आपको मिलेगा प्लस के थ्रू। देन जो डाउट सेशंस है, क्या जो डाउट क्लियरिंग सेशंस है वो भी कहाँ, तो वो भी होंगे प्लस में। दीज आर फ्यू बेनिफिट्स, और भी है जैसे unlimited access to notes, to views, and to subjects. ठीक है, अब नॉट नेसेसरी कि आपने क्या लिया है, सर आपने प्लस सब्सक्रिप्शन लिया है एक सब्जेक्ट का। ऐसा नहीं रहता कि सर ये प्लस एक सब्जेक्ट का, नो, ये सारे सब्जेक्ट्स का है। एक सिंपल प्लस सब्सक्रिप्शन कवर्स ऑल योर सब्जेक्ट्स, ठीक है, बी इट साइंस और बी इट कॉमर्स, सारे सब्जेक्ट्स। ठीक है, आपने आपने फिर ये सारी चीजें बहुत ध्यान रखनी है। दिस इज वन ऑफ माय फेवरेट पॉइंट्स। ठीक है, now iconic is it is more on one-to-one interaction. It is based more on what? It is based more on one-to-one interaction. काफी पर्सनल लेवल पे जाके सर बातचीत होती है। ठीक है, व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय पर्सनल लेवल? सर वन टू वन इंटरेक्शन, दैट्स इट, वन टू वन इंटरेक्शन। we will be your personal coach, all right? We will be your personal coach. आपके स्टडी प्लान्स, आपकी गोल, ठीक है, आपकी मेंटरिंग, सारी चीजें सारी चीजें किसी होगी वन टू वन। आपके डाउट सेशंस भी कैसे रहेंगे गाइस? आपके डाउट सेशंस भी रहेंगे वन टू वन, दैट मीन्स एक्सक्लूसिव डाउट सेशंस। क्या डाउट सेशंस भी कैसे रहेंगे? एक्सक्लूसिव। देन देयर इज समथिंग कॉल्ड पैरेंटल कनेक्ट। क्या है पैरेंटल कनेक्ट? नाउ व्हाट इज पैरेंटल कनेक्ट? पैरेंटल कनेक्ट सर आपका जो हार्डवर्क है, गाइस आपका जो हार्डवर्क है वो काफी इंपॉर्टेंट है, एंड वो कम्युनिकेट होना भी बहुत जरूरी है आपके पेरेंट्स से, बिकॉज एक क्या बने रहेगा, एक पॉजिटिव वाइब बनी रहेगी आपके सराउंडिंग, पॉजिटिव वाइब बनी रहेगी आपके आसपास। ये बहुत बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी है। ठीक है, you guys have to stress it. Positive vibe is very very important। ठीक है, अगर अगर आपको ये नहीं है, ठीक है, अगर आपको ये नहीं मिल रही है, then then sir you have to work for it, guys, you have to work for it। So it is very important that we have a positive vibe, इसलिए we have what, that's why we have parental connect। and best thing iconic में तो सारे प्लस के बेनिफिट्स ऑलरेडी रहते ही रहते हैं। ठीक है, आइकॉनिक में सारे प्लस के बेनिफिट्स इंक्लूडेड रहते हैं, राइट? चलिए, लेट्स मूव फॉरवर्ड नाउ। ऑल यू हैव टू डू इज डाउनलोड द ऐप। ठीक है, द प्ले स्टोर या आईओ स्टोर। ठीक है, कहीं से भी कर लीजिए। नाम क्या है? द अनअकैडमी लर्निंग ऐप। ठीक है, देन साइन अप एंड सेट योर गोल। हमारा गोल रहेगा सीबीएसई 12। हमारा गोल क्या है? हमारा गोल है सीबीएसई 12। ठीक है, देन देन अगर अगर बच्चा आप लोग 11th में हो, अगर कोई देख रहा है जो 11th में है, ठीक है, दीज आर द वेरिएंट्स फॉर यू और प्लस। प्लस में अगर आप 11th में हो तो यू गेट ऑप्शन कि आप 11th एंड 12th क्या बोला हमने 11th एंड 12th दोनों की ठीक है दोनों का साथ में सब्सक्रिप्शन ले लो ये 11th 12th तो 1 3 6 15 18 and 24 for people who are in 11th I would suggest to go for a longer term plan ठीक है why because it will cover your 11th as well as 12th ठीक है and if you apply this code ठीक है अगर ये कोड आपने अगर यहाँ लगा दिया ठीक है अगर ये कोड यहाँ लगा दिया सो क्या होगा you'll get a flat 10% off you'll get what you'll get a flat 10% off ये थे प्लस ये क्या थे ये थे प्लस के वेरिएंट्स for people who are in 11th similarly iconic now those who are in 11th I highly recommend getting an iconic subscription right why because आपको 12th का गोल अचीव करने के लिए 11 से ही एक एक एनवायरनमेंट मिलेगा एक माइंडसेट मिलेगा एक प्रॉपर गाइडेंस मिलेगी ठीक है सो फॉर पीपल हु आर इन 11th आई हाईली रिकमेंड get an iconic subscription benefits are way more than whatever you are paying ठीक है so get an iconic I would suggest 18 months is fine 18 months is fine for people who are 11 apply this code again तो जहाँ पे गिफ्ट कोड रहता है वहाँ पे SAJYD पर अप्लाई कर दीजिए 10% ऑफ हो जाएगा राइट या 10% ऑफ हो जाएगा बढ़िया चीज एकदम बढ़िया सोच then then look here look at the right side right now now please अगर आप 12th में हो you have four variants actually 1 month 3 months 6 months and 12 months तो चार variants है I would suggest right now either go for 1 month or 3 months 6 or 12 फिर हमारे पोर्टफोलियो में ही नहीं आते क्योंकि टाइम ही नहीं बचा एग्जाम्स कब मार्च में होने वाली है ये प्रॉब्लली मार्च में होगी तो 1 month and 3 months आर द बेस्ट नाउ अभी देखिए अभी आप लोग कहोगे कि सर हमारी तो पढ़ाई हो चुकी है हम सब्सक्रिप्शन क्यों ले हमारी तो अभी एग्जाम्स है गाइस बट आप आपको रिविजन लेक्चर्स मैराथन्स क्विज़ेस टेस्ट सीरीज ठीक है आपको ये सारी चीजें ये सारी चीजें फिर भी करनी है एंड ये कहाँ ये अनअकैडमी प्लस कहाँ मिल जाएगी अनअकैडमी प्लस राइट सो आई हाईली रिकमेंड गेट गेट अ 1 month ठीक है और months हाँ तो अब 1 month is worth 3 and 3 months is worth 6.5 ठीक है तो ज्यादा डिफरेंस है बिल्कुल है सर ठीक है ज्यादा डिफरेंस है कॉस्ट बेनिफिट एनालिसिस करिए, ठीक है. इफ योर प्रिपरेशन इज ऑन पॉइंट, टेक अ 1 month. इफ यू वांट सम रिविजन्स एंड इफ यू वांट अ थोड़ा इन तक आपके साथ आपकी प्रिपरेशन चले, सो गेट अ 3 months, राइट. एंड इफ यू अप्लाई आवर कोड, ठीक है, अगर आप यहाँ पे क्या करते हो, SAJYT अप्लाई कर देते हो, आपको क्या मिल जाता है, सीधा सीधा 10% ऑफ हो जाता है, ठीक है. और कम हो जाएगा, और कम हो जाएगा. 1 month वाला तो सर एकदम ही कम हो गया, 2700. ये तो ऐसा है कि एक पार्टी में जाके, ठीक है, एक पार्टी में हम इतना स्पेंड कर देते हैं, राइट. एक पार्टी में गए सर, इतना तो स्पेंड हो ही जाता है, राइट. सो आई वुड हाईली रिकमेंड गेट अ 1 month और 3 months प्लस सब्सक्रिप्शन. 6-12 की जरूरत नहीं. ये दोनों की जरूरत नहीं, राइट. सिमिलरली आइकॉनिक, अब आइकॉनिक मैं अभी रिकमेंड नहीं करूंगा. जो बच्चे 11th में हैं उनके लिए ठीक है, बट जो बच्चे 12th में हैं उनके लिए नहीं. आई बिकॉज सर वेरिएंट्स दो ही है, 6 and 12. ये दो ही वेरिएंट्स है एंड हमारे पास उतना टाइम नहीं है. सिंपल कॉस्ट बेनिफिट एनालिसिस है गाइस, सिंपल कॉस्ट बेनिफिट एनालिसिस, ठीक है. सो अभी अभी ये मैं रेकमेंड नहीं करने वाला. आपको रेकमेंडेड क्या है, आपको रिकमेंडेड है प्लस. किसे, जो 12th में है. हाँ, जो 11th में है वो बिल्कुल जाके आइकॉनिक ले, बट जो अभी करंट टाइम में 12th में है, आई वुड रिकमेंड गो फॉर अ 1 month और 3 months प्लस, ठीक है. वेरी गुड. एंड एक बस थोड़ी सी चीज, नीचे नीचे एक लिंक दी गई है, किसकी, टेलीग्राम की लिंक है वो, ठीक है. वो किसकी लिंक है गाइस, वो टेलीग्राम चैनल की लिंक है. जाइए फटाफट से उसे ज्वाइन कर लीजिए, ठीक है. क्यों, क्यों सर, डेली अपडेट्स, क्यों डेली अपडेट्स, आपको हर क्लास के बारे में क्या मिल जाएंगे, डेली अपडेट्स मिल जाएंगे, राइट. एंड एंड गाइस, इफ यू वांट इफ यू वांट टू अटेंड आवर स्पेशल क्लासेस, आप क्या करें, आप सर ऐप पे ही फ्री लाइव क्लासेस या स्पेशल क्लासेस के सेक्शन में जाइए, ठीक है. वहां जाके वहां जाके यू कैन अटेंड ईच एंड एवरी स्पेशल क्लास, ईच एंड एवरी स्पेशल क्लास. उसमें कोई, सर उसमें कोई सब्सक्रिप्शन की नीड नहीं रहती है, क्या सर, उसमें कोई सब्सक्रिप्शन की नीड नहीं रहती है, ठीक है. एंड एंड बस रिमेंबर वन थिंग, स्पेशल क्लास क्या है सर, फ्री कंटेंट. एंड टू अनलॉक दिस फ्री कंटेंट, ठीक है, टू अनलॉक यू नीड अ कोड, और वो कोड क्या है, हमारा क्लास कोड ही सर वो फ्री कंटेंट को अनलॉक करने का कोड है, ठीक है गाइस. बहुत ही सिंपल. इफ यू वांट अ टेस्ट ऑफ प्लस, गो एंड वॉच ऑफ डी क्लासेस, डेमो है, बिल्कुल देखिए. अनलॉक करने के लिए सर, कौन सा, कोई भी स्पेशल क्लास अनलॉक करने के लिए, ठीक है, कोई भी स्पेशल क्लास अनलॉक करने के लिए आपने क्या सर, SAJYT यूज करना है. सिंपल, सिंपल एज दैट, नो झंझट. क्लियर, वेरी गुड. नाउ लेट्स स्टार्ट, ठीक है. लेट्स स्टार्ट विद टुडेज रिविजन. तो सबसे पहले देखेंगे इकोनॉमी ऑन द ईव ऑफ इंडिपेंडेंस। ठीक है सर, ड्यूरिंग द इंडिपेंडेंस क्या हाल रहे। देखिए टाइमलाइन बहुत सिंपल है। आप बोलोगे सर ये थ्योरी है, थ्योरी में क्या ही पढ़ना, सर रट लेंगे गाइस। इसे एक स्टोरी की तरह समझिए। ठीक है, आपको मजा और आएगी, आपको एक क्लैरिटी मिलेगी आपके ही देश की इकोनॉमी। ठीक है कि वो ऐसी क्यों है। ठीक है, एंड अगर आप लोग ये सोचते हैं कि सर क्या मतलब है, कोई मतलब नहीं है सर, जान के भी कोई मतलब नहीं है। ठीक है, नहीं ऐसा नहीं होता। ठीक है, इट इज इम्पोर्टेंट दैट वी नो दैट व्हाई आर इन इंडियन इकोनॉमी इज लाइक दिस, बिकॉज फ्यूचर फ्यूचर कौन है सर, हम है। एंड एक बैकग्राउंड पता रहे। ठीक है, सो वी कैन वर्क टुवर्ड्स इट, टुवर्ड्स इम्प्रूविंग, वी कैन गिव सजेशंस एंड ठीक है, वी कैन वर्क फॉर बेटर बेटर इकोनॉमी। ऑलराइट, चलिए। सो बहुत सिंपल है, पहले हम देखेंगे प्री इंडिपेंडेंस पीरियड, फिर आफ्टर इंडिपेंडेंस, पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस देखेंगे, एंड देन व्हाट वर द डिफिकल्टीज एंड कैसे रिफॉर्म्स आए। ठीक है, ग्रोथ, इकोनॉमी की ग्रोथ है बस। ठीक है, इंडियन इकोनॉमी का ग्रोथ देखना है। चलिए, द प्राइमरी objective of Indian economic development is to familiarize with the basic features of the Indian economy and its development as it is today in the aftermath of independence. Alright, basic objective. However, it is equally important to know something about the country's past, even as you learn about its present state and future prospects. So, let us look at the state of India's economy prior to the country's independence and form an idea of the various considerations that shaped India's post-independence development strategies. Okay? तो आज के चैप्टर में, ठीक है, हमारे मैराथन के फर्स्ट चैप्टर में हमें क्या देखना है कि what were the situations during pre-independence period during the rule of Britishers. चीजें बराबर है, हाँ जी, yes. So the structure of India's present day economy is not just of current making. ठीक है सर, आज की हालात जो है वो सिर्फ आज की हरकतों के कारण नहीं है। राइट, it has its roots steeped in history, particularly in the period when India was under British rule, which lasted for almost 2 centuries. ठीक है, which was almost for 2 centuries, 200 साल। कितना, 200 years। एंड हमें फाइनली इंडिपेंडेंस कब मिली गाइस, 15th August 1947। Right? The sole purpose of British colonial rule in India was to reduce the country to being a raw material supplier for Great Britain's own rapidly expanding modern industrial base. And understanding of the exploitative nature of this relationship is essential for an assessment of the kind of development which the Indian economy has been able to attain over the last 6.5 decades. So it's almost 7 decades now. ठीक है, sprint. India had an independent economy before the advent of British rule. Britishers के आने के पहले sir, we had an independent economy. Though agriculture was the main source of livelihood. Agriculture was the main source of livelihood for most people. Yet, the country's economy was characterized by various kinds of manufacturing activities. Even though देखिए अभी भी अभी तो कम हो गया है, but initially during during post independence till so 1990, okay, our majority of the population was engaged in what agriculture. Okay, it was engaged in what it was engaged in agriculture. ठीक है बट साथ ही साथ और भी चीजें थी ठीक है देयर वर मेनी मैन्युफैक्चरिंग एक्टिविटीज as well. It was particularly well known for its handicraft industry in the fields of cotton and silk textile, metals and precious stones work. These products enjoyed a worldwide market based on the reputation of fine quality of material used and the high standards of craftsmanship. Right? Not just agricultural sector, but as well as our handicraft industry was well known all over the world. Okay. Now, now, so ब्रिटिश रूल में क्या हाल रहे ठीक In the post-World War II scenario, countries were devastated by the war and needed enormous resources for reconstruction. Imports went up and the deficits were financed by drawing their reserves. Yeah, and that time the US dollar was the main component in the currency reserves of the rest of the world, and those reserves had been expanding on a consequence of the US running a continued balance of payment deficit. The economic policies, importantly, has it. The economic policies pursued by the colonial government in India were concerned more with the protection and promotion of the economic interest of their home countries. Oh. तो जो भी इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसी रही कॉलोनियल गवर्नमेंट की ब्रिटिशर्स की जो भी इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसी रही ब्रिटिशर्स की that was more focused that was more focused on the economic interest of their home country ठीक है इंडियंस पे ध्यान नहीं दिया किस पे ध्यान दिया सर ध्यान दिया सिर्फ और सिर्फ अपनी होम कंट्री ब्रिटेन पे ठीक है इंडिया में राज करके इंडियन इकोनॉमी की तरफ ध्यान नहीं दिया किसकी तरफ ध्यान दिया खुद की कंट्री की तरफ ठीक है खुद का भला चाहा हमारा नहीं These policies brought about a fundamental change in the structure of Indian economy, transforming the country into a raw material supplier and a consumer of finished industrial products. So this is the whole crux. ठीक है ये क्रक्स है ये क्रक्स है पूरे चैप्टर का ठीक है हर जगह पे आपको यही चीज देखने मिलेगी ठीक है जो भी हरकतें रही है सर इट ऑल लीड्स टू दिस पैराग्राफ I'll give you a minute or two आप क्या करें आप इसे सर अच्छे से देख लीजिए नोट डाउन कर लीजिए कहीं पे आई वुड सजेस्ट जल्दी जल्दी हो गया गाइस नोट डाउन हो गया Chलिए, let's move then. Obviously, the colonial government never made any sincere attempts to estimate India's national or per capita income. Some individuals' attempts were made to measure the India's income, but they were also inconsistent. They were also inconsistent. Among the notable estimators, Radhabai Navroji, William Digby, Finlay Shiraz, V.K. Rao, and R.C. Desai. ठीक है? Among these, it was V.K. Rao whose estimates were considered. ठीक है? Whose estimates were considered significant. Now many there are many ways ठीक है जिसके through significance पता किया गया. One can be hypothesis testing. ठीक है? Now these are all what? So these are not a part of our syllabus, but just for your knowledge. However, However, most studies did find that countries' growth of aggregate real output during the first half of 20th century was less than 2%, coupled with a half percent growth in per capita income. ये किस तरह से ग्रोथ कितनी रही जीडीपी किस तरह हमारा 2%. ठीक है कब फर्स्ट हाफ ऑफ 20th century फर्स्ट हाफ यानी सन 1900 से लेके 1950. ऑलराइट. एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर में क्या क्या असर हुआ क्या असर हुआ एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर में हमारे ब्रिटिश रूल का. India's economy under the British colonial rule remained fundamentally agree. ठीक है तो मेजरली सर इंडिया की इकोनॉमी एग्रीकल्चर में ही अटकी रही. अबाउट 85% होता 85% 85% of the population was in agriculture. ठीक है and they derived their livelihood directly or indirectly from it. However, despite being the occupation of such a large population, the agriculture sector continued to experience stagnation and unusual deterioration. Okay, stagnation and deterioration. There was continuous stagnation which was experienced by our agriculture sector and unusual deterioration. Right? Agriculture productivity became low. ठीक है sir overall terms में in absolute terms it became low. This sector experienced some growth due to expansion of the aggregate area under civilization, but comparatively it was very low. The stagnation in agriculture sector was caused mainly because of various systems of land settlement that was introduced by the colonial government. So there are many reasons. It is not just land settlement systems, but there are many reasons for the for the stagnation faced, for the deterioration faced by our agriculture during the rule. ठीक है आगे देखेंगे. Under the zamindari system, which was implemented in the Bengal presidency, the profit occurring out of agriculture sector went to the zamindar. ठीक है तो जो भी फार्मिंग के थ्रू प्रॉफिट आता था वो किसे जाता था जमींदार से. However, number of zamindars and not just the colonial government did nothing. ठीक है these people did nothing to improve the condition of agriculture. The main interest of zamindars was only to collect rent. ठीक है the main interest of zamindars was only to collect rent irrespective what the economic conditions. ठीक है, irrespective of what, irrespective of the economic conditions of the cultivators, the farmers, the tillers. ठीक है, this caused immense misery and social tension among the people. To a very great extent, the terms of revenue settlement were also responsible for zamindars adopting such an attitude. Why? Because dates for depositing specific sums of revenue were fixed. For whom? For the zamindars as well. Failing to which zamindars were to lose their right. देखिए, अगर एक अगर एक मैं ट्रायंगल बनाऊं हायरार्की का, तो सबसे ऊपर colonial गवर्नमेंट थी. ठीक है, they were they were dominating the zamindars for money. ठीक है, सर इन्हें इन्हें बोला जाता था कि अगर आप क्या नहीं करोगे, अगर आप हमें बराबर टाइम पे पैसे नहीं दोगे, तो क्या आप राइट्स लूज कर दोगे, आप क्या राइट्स लूज कर दोगे अपनी जमीन पे से. एंड दैट्स व्हाई they were imposing they were imposing such cruelty on the cultivators or farmers. So मेन फसाद की जड़ कौन था? मेन फसाद की जड़ सर हमारा कॉलोनियल गवर्नमेंट और ब्रिटिशर्स. Besides this, ठीक है, besides the zamindari system, low level of technology, lack of irrigation facilities, and negligible use of fertilizer. ठीक है, all these things added up. ठीक है, all these things added up for the downfall of our agriculture sector. All these things added up for the downfall of our agriculture sector. There was, of course, some evidence of a relatively high yield of cash crops in certain areas of the country due to commercialization of agriculture. ठीक है, so कुछ जगह पे improvement रही. क्यों? Because now we adopted cash crops rather than producing food crops. This could hardly help farmers in improving their economic condition, as instead of producing food crops, now they were producing cash crops, which were ultimately used by British industries back home. Okay. Despite some progress made in irrigation, India's agriculture was starved of investment in terracing, flood controls, drainage, and desalination of soil. With a small section of farmers changing from food crops to cash crops, a large section was still not able to shift. ठीक है, सिर्फ थोड़ी ग्रोथ दिखी हमें. ठीक है, थोड़ी ग्रोथ दिखी. अब वो ग्रोथ भी क्यों थी? ठीक है, वो ग्रोथ भी क्यों थी? बिकॉज वी शिफ्टेड. ठीक है, फ्यू ऑफ द फार्मर्स शिफ्टेड फ्रॉम फूड क्रॉप टू कैश क्रॉप. देखिए, फूड क्रॉप क्या है सर? ये फूड क्रॉप वो अनाज रहेगा, वो फूड ग्रेन रहेगा जो जो नॉर्मल लोगों में बटेगा. ठीक है, जो कंज्यूम होगा. But we shifted from this to cash crops, which were ultimately consumed by the Britishers. Then, फिर ये हालत थी हमारी एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर की. अब इंडस्ट्रियल सेक्टर की क्या हाल? इंडस्ट्रियल सेक्टर के क्या हाल? As in case of agriculture, so also in manufacturing, India could not develop a sound industrial base under the colonial rule. Even as the country's world-famous handicraft industry declined, no corresponding modern industrial base was allowed to come up. Take the pride. देखिए, मोटो गवर्नमेंट कॉलोनियल गवर्नमेंट का मोटो एक ही था, हमेशा वही रहेगा। ठीक है, कि हमें ग्रोथ ना करने दें। ठीक है, हमें सिर्फ रॉ मटेरियल के लिए यूज करें एंड हमें कंज्यूमर बना दे उनके चीप फिनिश गुड्स का। Now, अब जस्ट इमेजिन अगर हमारा इंडस्ट्रियल सेक्टर ग्रो कर जाता। ठीक है, सो वो जो प्रोडक्ट्स थे वो हम ही मैन्युफैक्चर कर लेते। ठीक नहीं, वो प्रोडक्ट्स जो थे वो हम ही मैन्युफैक्चर कर लेते। अगर ऐसा हो जाता तो उनका मोटो ही फेल हो जाता सर, रूल करने का। ठीक है, the primary motive of colonial government behind this policy of systematically deindustrializing India was of twofold. The first intention was to reduce India to a status of mere exporter, ठीक है, mere exporter of what? Raw material for the upcoming modern industries in Britain, and second, to turn India in a market of finished products for those industries so that the continued expansion could be ensured to the maximum advantage of their home country. ठीक है, दो रीजंस। ठीक है, दो रीजंस सर, दोनों वही है। एक, मेयर एक्सपोर्टर बना दो, एक्सपोर्टर ऑफ रॉ मटेरियल, एंड importer of finished goods, importer of finished goods. Okay, this was this was the whole intention throughout the rule. हर जगह आपको यही दिखेगा। Alright. In the unfolding scenario, the decline of the indigenous handicraft industry created not only massive unemployment but also new demand in Indian consumer market, which was now deprived of the supply of locally made goods. This demand was profitably met by the increased imports of cheap manufactured goods. During the second half of 19th century, modern industries began to root in India. So the progress still remained very slow. Initially, this development was confined to setting up of cotton and jute textile. थोड़ी, ऐसा नहीं है कि कुछ ग्रोथ हुई नहीं, थोड़ी इंडस्ट्रीज ग्रो करी, जैसे कि कॉटन एंड जूट टेक्सटाइल मिल्स। ये cotton textiles were mainly dominated in Maharashtra and Gujarat, right? Whereas the jute mills were more dominant in Bengal. Later, iron and steel industries began coming up in the beginning of 20th century. The Tata Iron and Steel Tisco was incorporated in 1907. A few other industries in the fields of sugar, cement, paper extractor came after the World War II. However, there was hardly any capital goods industry to help promote further industrialization in Guys, अगर आप एक चीज पे ध्यान दोगे, ठीक है, अभी तक जो भी कौन कौन सी कॉटन, जूट, फिर टिस्को, ठीक है, शुगर, सीमेंट, पेपर इंडस्ट्रीज, ये सारी चीजें, फिर ये सारी चीजें एक तरीके से कंज्यूमेबल्स। ये सारी चीजें किसकी इंडस्ट्रीज है? कंज्यूमेबल्स की इंडस्ट्रीज। देर आर नो इंडस्ट्रीज देर आर नो इंडस्ट्रीज फॉर कैपिटल गुड्स। अब कैपिटल गुड्स क्या है? तो कैपिटल गुड्स वो गुड्स होते हैं जो हेल्प करते हैं हमें आगे प्रोडक्शन, आगे दूसरे गुड्स को प्रोड्यूस करने में। अगर ऐसे ऐसे गुड्स प्रोड्यूस नहीं हो रहे तो आप फर्दर एक्सपांड कैसे करोगे? राइट, आप फर्दर एक्सपेंशन में कैसे जाओगे? राइट, capital goods industry means industries which can produce machines which are in turn used for producing articles of current consumption. Right? The establishment of a few manufacturing units here and there was no substitute to near wholesale displacement of country's traditional handicraft industry. Furthermore, the growth rate of new industrial sector and its contribution to GDP was still very small. Another significant drawback of the new industrial sector was the very limited areas of operation. This sector remained confined only to railway, power, communication, ports, and some other departmental undertaking. Then, foreign trade. क्या सर? Foreign trade पे क्या सर? Just a second. Sorry. फॉरेन ट्रेड अब कैसे अफेक्ट हुआ? देखिए, एक एक करके सारे सारे एलिमेंट्स देख रहे हैं हम। ठीक है, पहले एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर में देखा क्या प्रॉब्लम्स आई, फिर देखा हमने, फिर देखा कि हमारे इंडस्ट्रियल सेक्टर में कैसे प्रॉब्लम्स। अब फॉरेन ट्रेड में क्या प्रॉब्लम्स आने शुरू हो गई, राइट? फॉरेन ट्रेड में क्या प्रॉब्लम्स आनी शुरू हो गई, चलिए वो देखते हैं। इंडिया हैज बीन एन इम्पोर्टेंट ट्रेडिंग नेशन सिंस एंशिएंट टाइम्स, but the restrictive policy of commodity production, trade and tariff pursued by the colonial government adversely affected the structure. ठीक है? Consequently, India became exporter of primary products such as raw silk, wool, cotton, sugar, indigo, jute, and an importer of finished consumer goods like cotton silk, woolen clothes, cotton silk and woolen clothes, okay, and other capital goods like machineries, okay, which was produced by the Britain. For all practical purposes, Britain maintained a monopoly, इसको highlight कर सकते हैं हम। Britain maintained a monopoly control over India's export and import. ये चीज ये चीज आपको हर जगह देखने मिलेगी, ये चीज आपको हर जगह देखने मिलेगी। प्लीज आपने साथ ही साथ नोट्स बनाने हैं, ठीक है? नोट्स बना के रखने हैं, साथ ही साथ आप जो जो अंडरलाइन कर रहे हैं आप उन्हें पॉइंट लिखते जाइए, राइट? गुड। As a result, right? As a result, more than half of foreign trade was restricted. So more than half of the trade was restricted to be done only and only by British. ठीक है? Very few countries like China, Sri Lanka, Iran were allowed to do trades. Right? Furthermore, the export surplus. Furthermore, what? Furthermore, the export surplus did not result in any flow of gold or silver in India. Now we all know that the gold standard use हुआ करता था, ठीक है? For foreign exchange हम क्या यूज करते थे? हम गोल्ड स्टैंडर्ड यूज करते थे। अब अगर आप क्या कर रहे हो, अगर आप एक्सपोर्ट कर रहे हो, ठीक है, तो इट इज वेरी ऑब्वियस कि आपके पास क्या आएगा, आपके पास सर गोल्ड आना चाहिए, गोल्ड का इनफ्लो होना चाहिए, गोल्ड के रिजर्व बढ़ने चाहिए। बट क्या ऐसा हो रहा था? नहीं। Rather, this was used to make payments for the expenses incurred by an office set up by colonial government in the Britain, ठीक है, in the Britain itself। सर जो गोल्ड आ रहा था, ठीक है, that was used to pay off the expenses of government offices, war expenses, ठीक है सर, and and so all the imports, ठीक है, all the imports also drained out, the wealth of India. ठीक है? तो हमें हमें पूरा पूरा यूज किया गया, हमें पूरा पूरा यूज किया गया, पूरा ड्रेन कर दिया, हमारे पूरा रिजर्व्स खत्म कर दिया। ये बिकॉज उनका मकसद एक ही था, सर, उनका मकसद एक ही था कि हमें हमारे कंट्री से सारी रॉ मटेरियल निकाल लें और चीप प्रोडक्ट्स दे दें, बस। हाँ, demographic conditions. Various details about population of British India were first collected through census in 1881. Though suffering from certain limitations, it revealed that unevenness is there in India's population growth. Subsequently, every 10 years, such census operations were carried out. Before 1921, India was in the first stage of demographic transition. The second stage of transition began after 1921. So, what are the demographic transition now? After 1920s, our population growth started increasing. Okay. However, neither the total population of India nor the rate of population growth at this stage was very high. Still, it was not high. The various social development indicators were also not quite increasing. The overall literacy rate was just 16%, and in Miss Sir, the female literacy was just 7%. Public health facilities were either unavailable, or if they were available, they were inadequate. They were inadequate. Right? So, and due to all this, water and airborne diseases, water and airborne diseases took a huge toll on the life of Indians. Okay? And due to this, no wonder the mortality rate went high. Okay? The infant mortality rate was quite alarming, of 218 per thousand. Okay? Currently, it is 33 per thousand, but at that time it was 218 per thousand. Even the life expectancy was very low. The life expectancy was only 44 years. It was only 44 years. Okay? Whereas right now it is somewhere around 70. Okay? In the absence of reliable data, it is difficult to specify the extent of poverty at the time, but there is no doubt that extensive poverty prevailed in India during the colonial period, which contributed to the worsening profile of India's population. Then, occupational structure पे क्या असर हुआ? Colonial rule का occupational structure पे क्या असर हुआ? Most of most of the people were still engaged in agriculture. ठीक है? Hardly, but 10% were in manufacturing and 20%, 15 to 20% were in service sector. Parts of the Madras Presidency, ठीक है? Bombay, Bengal witnessed a decline in dependence of the workforce on agriculture, with a commensurate increase in the manufacturing and service sector. However, there had been an increase in the share of workforce in agriculture during the same time in the states of Orissa, Rajasthan, and Punjab. Okay, these were the affluent states. Under the colonial regime, basic infrastructure such as railway, ports, water transports, post offices did develop. However, the real motive behind this development was not to provide the basic amenities, but to serve their colonial interest. देखिए, हर चीज के पीछे एक मतलब है उनका। Right? The roads constructed in India prior to the advent of British rule were not fit for modern transport. The roads that were built primarily served the purpose of mobilizing the army within India and drawing out raw materials from the courtyard to the nearest railway station. Yeah. There always remained an acute shortage of all weather roads to reach out to the rural areas. The Britishers introduced railway in 1850 and they are very proud of it. Yet they said this is the most important contribution that they could made to India. But this was also this was also for their own benefit. Yet this was also for their own benefit, no doubt. The volume of exports undoubtedly expanded. ठीक है? So exports बढ़ गए, but but sir, did it help India? No, it did not. It did not help us. And so even railway was present. To get the benefits that people derived from railways were far less than the economic loss that India had to face. ठीक है? Than the economic loss India had to face. ये कहानी किसकी? ये कहानी थी सर इकोनॉमी. ये कहानी थी हमारी इकोनॉमी की. प्री इंडिपेंडेंट प्री इंडिपेंडेंस पीरियड वाली कहानी थी. अब पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस या पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस. Let's take a break of 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes, and then we'll start. चलिए हो गया गाइस. ब्रेक. ब्रेक खत्म. लेट्स गेट बैक. राइट. अब अब दूसरा सर हमारा मैराथन में दूसरा चैप्टर है पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस. ठीक है. इंडियन इकोनॉमी ड्यूरिंग 1950 एंड 1990. राइट. ये अब हमारा गोल रहेगा. राइट. चलिए. On August 15th, 1947, India woke to a new dawn of freedom. Finally, we were masters of our own destiny. After some 200 years of British rule, the job of nation building was now in our hands. Finally, finally क्या 200 साल के बाद 200 साल के बाद it was again in our hands to build up a nation. The leader of independent India to decide, among the other things, the type of economic system which would be suitable for our nation. ठीक है? A system which would promote the welfare of all rather than few. ठीक है. सर ये मोटो रहा. This was the basic objective, right? There are different types of economic systems, and among them, socialism. Okay? Socialism appealed to Nehru. Okay? However, he was not in favor of the kind of socialism established in the former Soviet Union, where all the means of production, okay, that is, all the factories and farms, were owned by the countries, okay, and there were no private property. Socialism. So socialism थोड़ा जमा. Nehru ji को socialism थोड़ा जमा, but he was not in favor, okay, because there were no private property. It is not possible in India, okay, for government to change the ownership pattern of land and other properties of its citizens in a way that it was done in the former Soviet Union. Nehru and many other leaders and thinkers of newly independent India sought an alternative to extreme versions of capitalism and socialism. क्या निकाला? जुगाड़ निकाला. क्या निकाला? जुगाड़ निकाला. Basically, sympathizing with the socialist outlook, they found the answer in the economic system, which in their view combined the best features of socialism and capitalism without its drawback. In this view, India would be a socialist society with a strong public sector, but also with private property and democracy. See, the government would plan the economy with private sector being encouraged to be the part of the planned effect. The Industrial Revolution and the directive principles of Indian Constitution reflected this outlook. In 1950, a planning committee was established with Nehru leading the way as a chairperson, and the era of five-year plan began. Now, which type of economy to select? Okay. This was dependent on three questions. ये dependent था इन तीन questions पे. ठीक है. What goods and services should be produced? How the goods and services should produce. ठीक है, कैसे प्रोड्यूस करें, क्या प्रोड्यूस करें, एंड उनका डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन कैसा हो, how should the goods and services be distributed among the people, right? So one answer to these questions is to depend on the market forces. Okay, and that is called capitalism. If you let the market decide, that is what is called capitalism. Only those consumer goods will be produced that are in demand, is goods that can be sold profitably either in the domestic or in foreign market. If cars are in demand, cars will be produced. If bicycles are in demand, bicycles will be. If labor is cheap than capital, more labor intensive methods of production will be used and vice versa. सारी चीजें कौन, सब मार्केट डिमांड. सारी चीजें किस पे डिपेंड करेगी, डिमांड. और सारी चीजें डिपेंड करेगी demand. ठीक है, कौन से कुछ प्रोड्यूस करना, कैसे प्रोड्यूस करना, एंड डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन कैसे होगा. अब डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन, ठीक है, in capitalist society the goods produced are distributed among people not on the basis of what people need but on the basis of purchasing power. Correct? That is, one has to have the money in their pocket to buy. Correct? Distribution कैसा होगा, so on the basis of purchasing power. Low cost housing for poor is much needed but will not count as demand in the market. ठीक है, because the poor do not have the purchasing power to buy back the demand. ठीक है. As a result, this commodity will not be produced and supplied as per market forces. Such a society did not appeal to Nehru, our first prime minister. Okay. So he wanted a better lifestyle for the people. He wanted that people get what they were deprived of. He wanted to improve the quality of life of people. Okay. And in capitalist economy, it was not at all possible. Okay. In a capitalist economy, it was not at all possible. Then Then a second set, a socialist society, answers the three questions in totally different way. अलग ही तरीके से आंसर होगा. The socialist society, government is a deciding entity. Okay. The government decides what goods are to be produced, okay, in accordance with the needs of the society. Now, the government assumes that they know the best. Okay. It assumes that government knows what is good for the people. Okay. And so what is desired by the individual consumers. Okay. The government decides how goods are to be produced and how they should be distributed. Distribution under socialism is supposed to be based on what people need and not on what they can afford. Okay. Unlike capitalism, for example, a socialist nation provides free health care to all citizens. A socialist society has no private property since everything is owned by the state. Examples are China and Cuba. Right? Now, most of the countries adopted mixed economy. Okay, mixed economy is what it is, a fusion of capitalist and socialist economy. That's what it is, a fusion of. The government and the market together answers the three questions of what to produce, how to produce, and how to distribute what is produced. In a mixed economy, the market will provide whatever goods and services it can, and the government will provide essential goods and services which the market fails to do. Now, now सर टाइप ऑफ इकोनॉमी देखा, ठीक है। अब सर आ जाते हैं प्लान पे, ठीक है। अब आ जाते हैं व्हाट इज अ प्लान। A plan spells out how the resources of nation should be put to use. It should have some general goals and some specific goals, okay, which needs to be achieved within the specified period of time. In India, plans were of 5 years duration. Okay, that's why we call 5 year plan. Our plan documents up to the year 2017 was not only specific the objective to attain in the 5 year plan, but also has what is to be achieved over a period of 20 years. And this long term plan is called perspective plan. The 5 year plan were supposed to provide the basis for this perspective plan. It will be unrealistic to expect all the goals of a plan to be equal. Okay? That's why not each and every goal were given equal importance. In fact, the goals may actually be in conflict. For example, the goal of introducing modern technology may be in conflict with the goal of increasing employment in the technology because it reduces the need of labor. The planners have to balance the goals, a very difficult job indeed. We must find different goals being emphasized in different plans in India. India's 5 year plan did not spell out how much of each and every goods and services to be produced, and which is not even necessary. Because it is enough if the plan is specific about the sectors where it plays a commanding role. Now, जो हमने क्या जो हमने गोल्स पढ़े, ठीक है, कुछ स्पेसिफिक गोल्स भी रहेंगे, ठीक है। हम स्पेसिफिक गोल्स की बात करेंगे. A plan should have some specific goals. The goals of 5 year plan were growth, modernization, self-reliance and equity. इसे याद करने के लिए आप क्या लिखे, जेम्स लिखे. क्या लिखे, so goals of 5 year plan के आगे क्या लिख दे, जेम्स. Growth, equity, modernization and self-reliance. These were the specific these were the specific goals that each and every 5 year plan had to attain. Okay? But this does not mean that all plans have equal importance to these goals. Why? Due to limited resources, alright, a choice has to be made in each plan about which of the goal is to be given primary importance. Right? Nevertheless, the planners have to ensure that as far as possible, the policies of the plan do not contradict these four goals. Right? Now, ये करके हमारे तो चारों स्पेसिफिक गोल्स देख लेते हैं. सबसे पहले है जेम्स में से सबसे पहले देख रहे हैं ग्रोथ. It refers to increase in country's capacity to produce the output of goods and services within the country. It implies either a large stock of productive capital or a larger size of supporting services like transport and banking, or an increase in the efficiency of productive capital and services. So whenever, okay, growth is simply what? Whenever your GDP rises, whenever your GDP rises, okay, we can say that we are in a growing economy. Okay, and हमने एक चीज पढ़ी थी मैक्रो में, whenever our GDP rises at constant prices, we say that we are in a growing economy. Alright? A good indicator of economic growth in the language of economics is steady increase in GDP. The GDP is the market value of all goods and services produced in a country during a year. Okay? So you can imagine GDP being a cake and the growth being the size. Okay? केक जितना बड़ा ग्रोथ उतनी ज्यादा. ठीक है, केक जितना बड़ा ग्रोथ उसकी उतनी ज्यादा. The GDP of a country is derived from different sectors of economy, mainly agriculture, industrial, and the service. Excuse me. The contribution made by each of these sectors make up the structural composition of economy. In some countries, agriculture contributes more, while in other, the service sector or the manufacturing sector. Then, modernization. We have modernization. To increase to increase the production of goods and services, the producers have to adopt new technologies. For example, a farmer can increase the output of the farm by using new seeds instead of the old ones. Okay. Similarly, a factory can increase output by using a new type of machinery. The adoption of new machineries, new technology is what is called modernization. Is what is called modernization. But however, modernization does not only refers to use of new technology, but also change in the social outlook. There are two components of modernization. First is first is adoption. First is adoption of technology, and second is change in the social outlook. Social outlook का simple meaning लोगों की सोच. Alright. Then self reliance. ये word आत्मनिर्भर आजकल बहुत सुनने में आ रहा है. ठीक है. Why? Because it is one of the specific goals. ठीक है. It is one of the specific goals of what India's 5-year plan. ठीक है. So a nation can promote economic growth and modernization by using its own resources or by using the resources imported from other nations. The first 7 plans have given importance to self-reliance, which means avoiding imports of those goods which could be produced in India itself. This policy was considered a necessity in order to reduce our dependence on foreign countries, especially for food. Okay, we were very much dependent on USA for import of food. It is understandable that people who are recently freed from foreign domination should give importance to self-reliance. Further, it was feared that dependence on import of food supplies, foreign technology, capital, we will be vulnerable. We will be again vulnerable, and there will be interventions of foreigners in our economic policy. Kafi simple. Then, what do you mean by equity? Equity simply means equality. It simply means what? Equality. Now, growth, modernization, self-reliance by themselves sorry for the disturbance, may not improve the kind of life which people are living. A country can have high growth, the modern technology, okay, but still they have people who would be living in poverty. Why? Because there is no equality. Every Indian should be able to meet his basic needs. Just a second. Every Indian should be able to meet his basic needs, such as food, decent house, education, healthcare services, and inequality in the distribution of wealth should be reduced. Okay. Now let us see how the first 7 5-year plan covering the period of 50 to 90 then attempted to attain these four goals. ठीक है हर एक सेक्टर में कैसे कैसे अटेन किया सबसे पहले एग्रीकल्चर सबसे पहला क्या एग्रीकल्चर we have learned that during the colonial rule there was neither growth nor equity in the agriculture sector. The policymakers of independent India had to address these issues, which they did using two things. तो क्या नाम एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर में क्या है सर रिफॉर्म्स ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन एंड लैंड रिफॉर्म now land reforms at the time of independence the land tenure system was characterized by intermediaries that is zamindars and jagirdars who merely collected rent from the actual tillers of soil without contributing towards improvement of the farm ठीक है सिर्फ इन्होंने क्या किया सिर्फ इन्होंने रेंट कलेक्ट किया और कुछ भी नहीं ठीक है the lowest the lowest productivity of the agriculture sector forced India to import goods from USA. Equity in agriculture called for land reform, which primarily referred to change in ownership. Just a year after independence, steps were taken to abolish intermediaries and to make the tillers the owners of the land. The idea behind this move was that ownership of the land would give incentive to the tillers to invest in making improvements. ये सिंपल सी बात है guys. अगर कोई चीज इन्हें ओनरशिप देने का ओनरशिप फार्मर्स को देने का मकसद क्या था to give them incentive. देखिए अगर कोई चीज आपकी है if if you own something if you own something सिंपल सी बात है सिंपल सी बात है क्या सर आप उसका ज्यादा ध्यान रखेंगे ठीक है यू विल केयर फॉर इट मोर ठीक है so that was the sole motive of giving the ownership of land to the farmer ठीक है land ceiling was another policy to promote equity in agriculture sector. This means fixing the maximum size of land which one can hold. Okay? The purpose of land ceiling was to reduce concentration of land ownership in field. The abolition of intermediaries meant 200 lakh tenants came into direct contract with the government. They were thus free from the exploitations by the zamindar. The ownership conferred on the tenants gave them the incentive to increase output, and this contributed to the growth of agriculture. But in some areas, the former zamindars continued to own large lands by making use of loopholes. What they did, they started, they started to give out their lands to their relatives. Because उन्होंने क्या बोला सर हम नहीं यूज कर सकते ना ठीक है हमारे रिलेटिव्स कर लेंगे अल्टीमेटली वो तो रहेगा हमारे ही ठीक है सर ऐसे लूप होल्स का यूज करने लगे but in states like Kerala and West Bengal land reforms were established strictly, and the farmers of the state, ठीक है, the farmers of those states experience experience equality and growth due to land reform. Now, the एक चीज एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर में जो थी होती लैंड रिफॉर्म, अब ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन, अब क्या ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन, दिस वाज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. About 75% of country population was dependent on agriculture. Productivity in agriculture sector was very low because use of old technology, absence of required infrastructure. ठीक है. India's agriculture widely dependent on the monsoon, and अगर बारिश नहीं आई सर, बारिश नहीं आई तो हम प्रॉब्लम में आ जाते थे. क्या बारिश अगर नहीं आई तो हम प्रॉब्लम में आ जाते, बिकॉज हम मेजरली किस पे डिपेंडेंट रहते थे, हम मेजरली डिपेंडेंट थे मानसून पे ही, because we didn't have proper irrigation facilities. Okay? The stagnation in agriculture during the colonial rule was permanently broken by Green Revolution. Okay? And sir, how? By using high yield variety seed. Right? The use of these seeds required the use of fertilizers and pesticides in the correct quantities as well as a regular supply of water. The application of these inputs in correct proportion is vital. The farmer could benefit from high-yield variety seeds, required reliable irrigation facilities as well as financial resources. As a result, in the first phase of Green Revolution, the use of high-yield variety seeds were restricted to the affluent states of Punjab, Andhra Pradesh, and Tamil Nadu. Further, the use was then benefited to other regions as well. Again, when during the second phase, the spread of green revolution technology enabled India to achieve self-sufficiency in food grains. India was no longer on the mercy of America for their food requirement. Growth in agriculture output is important, but it is not enough. If a large population of this increase is consumed by the farmer themselves instead of being sold in the market, higher output will not make much of a difference. अगर maximum output अगर फार्मर्स खुद ही कंज्यूम कर ले रहे हैं तो कोई मतलब नहीं आएगा. सो क्या है, नीड है कि वो सरप्लस को मार्केट में बेचा जाए. ठीक है. द proportion of agriculture produce which is sold in the market by the farmers is called marketed surplus. ठीक है. A good proportion of rice and wheat produced during the Green Revolution was sold by the farmers in the market, thus, thus increasing the supply. ठीक है. अब अगर कोई चीज की सप्लाई बढ़ गई मार्केट में तो ऑटोमेटिकली प्राइसेस गिर जाएंगे. वो चीज के क्या, सो वो चीज के प्राइसेस गिर जाएंगे. And that what is happened when the market surplus was sold in the market. ठीक है. And the prices were brought down for the essential goods so that each and every person of the economy could benefit. And also the government built up a stock of food for the time of emergency. While the nation immensely benefited from the Green Revolution, the technology involved was not free from risk. Out of such risk was the possibility that it would increase the disparity between the farmers. ठीक है. Since only big farmers could afford the benefits. ठीक है. Moreover, the high variety crop were also more prone to the pest attacks, the small farmer adopting the technology could lose everything. But fortunately, the governments took a step and intervened. ठीक government provided loans at low interest rate and gives subsidies. ठीक as a result, they brought in what? They brought in they brought in equality between both large and small farmers. Now, when when the government started giving subsidies, there were debates over it. ठीक the economic justification of subsidy in agriculture is at present a hotly debated question. It is generally agreed that it is not necessary to use subsidies to provide an incentive for adoption of high variety technology. Any new technology will be looked upon as being risky by farmers. Subsidies were therefore needed to encourage farmers to test the new technology. Some economists believe that once the technology is found profitable and is widely adopted, subsidies should phase out. ठीक है because it has served the purpose. देखिए अब सब्सिडीज के ऊपर चर्चा ऐसी हो रही थी. ठीक है सब्सिडीज के ऊपर चर्चा ऐसी हो रही थी. दो साइड थे. ठीक है क्या दो साइड थे. सर एक बोल रहे थे. सर एक इन फेवर थे, एक अगेंस्ट थे. ऑब्वियसली हमेशा डिबेट में दो साइड रहेंगे. एक ने कहा तो सब्सिडीज सब्सिडीज जरूरी है. एक ने कहा नहीं. अब देखा जाए तो दोनों की बात सही थी. दोनों दोनों सही थे बिकॉज सब्सिडीज वर इम्पोर्टेंट. बट फॉर होम बट फॉर होम द स्मॉल फार्मर्स. बड़े लोगों को जरूरत नहीं थी. एंड जो अगेंस्ट में बोल रहा था वो फिर वो ये कंसिडर कर रहा था दैट सब्सिडीज अल्टीमेटली क्या है. इट इज अ गवर्नमेंट एक्सपेंस राइट. अब जिसका फायदा सब उठा रहे थे. ठीक है जिसके पास पैसा बहुत ज्यादा है वो भी उठा रहा था. ठीक है सो एक वे आउट निकाला गया. ओनली अब ओनली सिर्फ और सिर्फ जो भी स्मॉल फार्मर्स थे उन्हें सब्सिडीज दी गई. ठीक है उन्हें सब्सिडीज दी गई so that an equality is maintained between everyone. Right? Equality is maintained between. So again, economist has found that as a nation becomes more prosperous, the proportion of GDP contribution by agriculture as a proportion to the working population declines. देखिए जैसे जैसे इकोनॉमी ग्रोथ होती है जैसे जैसे इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ होती है तो वैसे वैसे जीडीपी एग्रीकल्चर का जीडीपी कंट्रीब्यूशन कम होते जाता है एज कंपेयर टू अदर सेक्टर्स. As compared to what? As compared to other sectors. In India, between 1950 to 1990, the proportion of GDP contributed by agriculture declined significantly, but not the population depending on it. Because there should be a shift, but that was not the case. The answer is that the industrial sector and service sector did not absorb the people working in the agriculture sector. Many economists call this the failure of the policies during 1950 to 1990. Right? I hope, I hope, sir, you are trying to absorb. Okay. Then, sir, trade and industry. The economist has found that poor nations can progress only if there's a good industrial sector. Okay. The industries provide employment which is more stable than agriculture. It promotes modernization and overall prosperity. So we might have studied that largely हम the cotton and jute textile पे dependent थे or iron and steel. We needed to expand. So private पब्लिक एंड प्राइवेट सेक्टर इकोनॉमीज का डेवलप तो पब्लिक एंड प्राइवेट सेक्टर इंडस्ट्रीज का डेवलपमेंट होना शुरू हुआ। अब सब पब्लिक एंड प्राइवेट सेक्टर एक मुश्किल ऐसी आ गई थी दैट सर एक्सपेंशन के लिए लोगों के पास क्या नहीं था, पैसा नहीं था। ठीक है। और ना ही ना ही क्या था सर, मार्केट। सो गवर्नमेंट गवर्नमेंट took up took up the essential industries. ठीक है, गवर्नमेंट took up the essential industries and the rest was left for the private. Okay. The decision to develop Indian economy on socialist lines led to the policy of government controlling the commanding heights as the second five-year plan put it. This meant that the government would have complete control of those industries that were vital. Okay. The policies of private would have to be complementary to those of the public sector. So the IPR 1956 divided our industries into three categories. The first category comprised industries which would be exclusively owned by the government. Second, which would be owned by the government but supported by the private sector. And third, which was solely private. Similarly, similarly, so people people establishing industries in backward areas were given benefits. Okay, they were given tax benefits and electricity lower electricity rates. Even so licensing, even though even though the private industry was given a free hand, but there was still rules. Okay? There were rules, there were licensing. Small scale industries were also backed up by the government. Okay? Small scale industries were restricted to produce few products, and those restrictions were for the benefit because वो कुछ सिर्फ स्मॉल स्केल इंडस्ट्री ही प्रोड्यूस कर सकती थी और कोई नहीं. If this was the motive behind the restrictions. ठीक है. बस सर यहाँ पे क्या, सर यहाँ पे पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस भी डिस्कस कर लिया. यहाँ पे क्या, यहाँ पे पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस भी डिस्कस कर लिया ना. Let's take a break. All right, let's take a break. We'll resume soon. Okay? And हम देखेंगे what were the economic scenario, what were the economic reforms after the 1991 period. ठीक है, 1991 के बाद क्या इकोनॉमिक रिफॉर्म्स रहे इसके ऊपर थोड़ी चर्चा करेंगे. ऑलराइट, लेट्स टेक अ क्विक ब्रेक गाइस, क्विक ब्रेक. चलिए, I hope it was a good break. फ्रेश हो गए गाइस आप लोग? चलिए, हम अब हमारे मैराथन के आखिरी आखिरी स्टेज पे, ठीक है, जहाँ पे हमें देखना है सर, रिफॉर्म्स आफ्टर 1991. What were the reforms that were brought in? All right. अभी स्टोरी लाइन कैसी चल रही है? देखिए, सर हमने प्री इंडिपेंडेंस पीरियड की हालत देखी सर. इंडियन इकोनॉमी ड्यूरिंग द प्री इंडिपेंडेंस पीरियड, दैट इज ड्यूरिंग व्हाट, ड्यूरिंग द कॉलोनियल रूल. ठीक है. देन दिस इज व्हाट, दिस इज द इवेंट ऑफ इंडिपेंडेंस. दिस इज 15th August. ठीक है सर, हमने इंडियन इकोनॉमी की हालत प्री इंडिपेंडेंस एंड पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस देख ली. ऑलराइट, प्री इंडिपेंडेंस एंड पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस देख ली 1950 से 1990 तक. ठीक है. अब अब हमें देखना है सर इसके बाद का पीरियड. ठीक है, दैट मींस 1991 के बाद से क्या हुआ. ठीक है, ये अभी हम देखेंगे. what were the economic changes, what were the economic reforms, and what were the different economic policies that were adopted after 1991. Right. And ये सब क्यों हुआ, why there was reforms, why there were changes, ये सारी चीजें ये चैप्टर में हम देखेंगे. चलो, you have studied in the previous chapter that since independence India followed a mixed economic framework. Okay, that is by combining the advantages of socialist and capitalist economy. Alright. Some scholars argue that over the years, this policy resulted in the establishment of variety of rules and laws which were aimed at controlling and regulating the economy. Initially aimed क्या था sir, to control and regulate the economy, but these various laws ended up in hampering the process of growth. It ended up hampering the process of growth. Right. Others state that India, which started its development from a near stagnation, has been able to achieve growth in savings, developed a diversified industrial sector which produces a variety of goods, and has experienced sustained expansion of agriculture output. ठीक है. देखिए, हर हर बार हर एक चीज के दो पहलू रहेंगे. हर एक के दो पहलू रहेंगे. Some people will say something, some people will say something. Some people will be for, some people will be against for that conversation. ठीक है. तो जहाँ पे there was some development, वहाँ पे सर ग्रोथ हमारी ऑन द अदर हैंड अगर देखा जाए तो ग्रोथ उतनी नहीं थी जितनी होनी चाहिए थी. इवन दो देयर वर सम डेवलपमेंट्स, मेजॉरिटी मेजॉरिटी सर डेवलपमेंट हुआ, बट स्टिल ग्रोथ वो रेट से नहीं हुआ जो रेट से होना चाहिए था. In 1991, India met with an economic crisis. India met with what? India met with an economic crisis relating to its external debt. ठीक है. The government was not able to make repayments on its borrowing from abroad. Foreign exchange reserves were generally maintained to import petroleum and other important items, dropped to a level that was not sufficient for even a fortnight. ठीक है. सर, एक्सटर्नल डेट यानी सर जो हमने बाहर वालों से पैसा लिया था, एब्रॉड से जो पैसा लिया था, ठीक है, वी स्टार्टेड टू फेस प्रॉब्लम्स इन दैट वी वर नॉट एबल टू मेक रीपेमेंट्स. Okay, we were not able to make repayments. So, so consequently, our foreign exchange reserves also dropped. Like, देखिए, if there is what if there is deficit, you can either finance your deficit through borrowing or buy ORS. Right? I hope you remember what is ORS, official reserve sale. So, sir, जब we are not able to pay out a debt, अब debt payment के लिए भी क्या लगेगा सर? Reserve लगेगा, foreign exchange reserve लगेगा. If that is being depleted, ठीक है, and it is also used for imports. So we were in an economic crisis because हमारा balance of payment had a huge deficit. Okay. The crisis was further, देखिए आगे क्या बोला है, the crisis was further compounded by the rising prices of essential goods. All these led to the government to introduce new set of policies which changed the direction of farm development strategy. ठीक है. So in 1991 में we met with what economic crisis. अब ये शुरुआत कहाँ से हुई, बैकग्राउंड क्या रहा, ठीक है. So it could be traced back to the 80s. The origin, देखिए, the origin of financial crisis can be traced from the ineffective management of Indian economy in the 1980s. कहाँ से? 1980s में फिर it can be traced back. It can be traced back to where the 1980s. Like, see, we know that for implementing various policies and its general administration, the government generates funds from various sources such as taxation. ठीक है. The गवर्नमेंट बजट में हमने देखा था कि सर रेवेन्यू के दो सोर्स रहते हैं, टैक्स रेवेन्यू एंड नॉन टैक्स रेवेन्यू. राइट. So the revenue that was generated through taxes were also not sufficient, and even if we consider non-tax revenue. When expenditure is more than the income, the government borrows to finance the deficit from banks and also from people within the country and also from financial institutions. देखिए, whenever there is, we studied, हमने पढ़ा था that whenever there is a deficit, ठीक है, whenever there is a deficit, we have three ways to write it off. तीन तरीके थे. पहला, सर, either you borrow कहाँ कहाँ से कर सकते हो? बोरो आप सर आरबीआई से कर सकते हो, ठीक है. लोगों से कर सकते हो बाय वे ऑफ बॉन्ड्स, या फिर सर फॉरेन एब्रॉड. ठीक, ये तीन तरीके थे फॉर बोरोइंग. या फिर आप क्या कर सकते हो, ओआरएस, या फिर आप अपना एसेट को सेल ऑफ व्हाट, सेल ऑफ एसेट. these were the three these were the three ways that you can finance your deficit, ठीक है. these were the ways. ये क्या थे? Ways to finance deficit. Alright. Development policies required that even though revenues were very low, the government had to overshoot its revenue to meet challenges like unemployment, poverty, and population explosion. Okay. So even though revenues were getting generated, but those revenue were not enough because we had a social problems such as unemployment, poverty, and population explosion. The continued spending on development programs of the government did not generate additional revenue. Moreover, Moreover, the government was not able to generate sufficient from the internal sources such as taxation. When the government was spending a large share of its income on areas which do not provide immediate returns, such as social sector and defense, there was a need to utilize the rest of its revenue in an efficient manner. The income from public sector undertakings were also not very high. Okay? At times, a foreign exchange borrowed from other countries and other financial institutions was spent on meeting the consumption needs. Right? So, हमें जरूरत क्या थी? There was a need to increase our exports. Okay? There was a need to increase our export and imports काम करने की नीड थी. ठीक है? Because if अगर imports बढ़ते जाते, ठीक है? If imports are increasing constantly, we need simultaneous increase in exports as well. ठीक है? And maybe a more exponential growth. क्या क्या कहा हमने? देखिए, if this is the trend of imports, we would have need we would have needed a much more exponential growth where in export a more expo अब देखिए अगर आप ठीक है सपोज अगर मैं एक सीधी लाइन ड्रॉ करने की कोशिश करूँ ठीक है if I draw a straight line try to explain you ठीक है if this is import your export should be much steeper than that ठीक है अगर एक लीनियर इक्वेशन बनाए the risk curve का so our export should be much steep ठीक है ये इसका इक्वेशन हो जाएगा ठीक है क्यों because we need foreign exchange we need what we need foreign exchange for our imports ठीक है हमें imports करने के लिए क्या लग रहे थे सब foreign exchange लग रहा था so it was necessary that we shoot up our exports in the late 1980s government expenditure began to exceed its revenue by large margins that meeting the expenditure through borrowings became unsustainable meeting expenditure through borrowings became what became unsustainable that means now borrowing was not the only way ठीक है it was not the only way so we needed to grow ठीक है we need to increase our revenue borrowing से अब काम नहीं चल पा रहा था prices of essential goods also increased imports went up but without matching the exports as pointed out earlier foreign exchange declined and were not even sufficient ठीक है and was not even sufficient for a period of 2 weeks right? There was also sufficient foreign exchange to there was also not sufficient foreign exchange to pay the interest on the foreign loan. And many countries and international funders refused to lend to India. So India approached the World Bank and the IMF. They approached the World Bank and IMF and received a sum of $7 billion. How much is $7 billion? Okay, this is how much. This is $7 billion. Nine zeros. Okay, but for availing this loan, these international agencies expected India. There was a condition. Okay, there was a condition that to liberalize and open up the economy by removing restrictions on private sector, reduce the role of government in many areas, and remove trade restrictions between India and other countries. Now, simply it means that India had to adopt L.P.G. Right now, देखिए, the policies, ठीक है, the policies which were adopted, ठीक है, the policies which were adopted before, ठीक है, before 1991, that is post independence 1950, 1950 to 90. So those were correct for those times because हम तभी तभी dependent हुए थे and we wanted to behave in isolation. We wanted that economy should behave in isolation. ठीक है, so that एक growth achieve हो सके, but that was not going to happen for long term. ठीक है, it is not suitable for long term. ठीक है, so so we had to come up with new policies. So we had to come up with new policies, and ultimately that crisis made us realize that there is a need of there is a need of what? Need of liberalization, privatization, and globalization. Right? India agreed to the conditionalities of World Bank and IMF and announced new economic policies. Okay? The new economic policy considered, okay, a wide range of economic reforms. The thrust of policies was towards more competitive environment in the economy and removing barriers to entry and growth of firms. This set of policies can broadly be classified into two groups: stabilization and structural reform functions. अब देखिए, हमारा जो न्यू इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसी था, ठीक है, हमारा जो न्यू इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसी था, it had two classifications. One was short term. उसका effect was what? Short term. And दूसरा was long term. ठीक है, short term was which measures? Stabilization measure, and long term was structural reforms. Alright. So stabilization measures were short term. It looked after the short term needs, and structural reforms were long term. Yeah. Stabilization measures are short term measures intended to correct the weaknesses that were developed in the balance of payment. In simple words, this means that there was a need to maintain sufficient foreign exchange and keep the rises keep the rising prices under control. Simply, so forex बढ़ाओ, inflation कम करो. ये क्या था? So this was the motto of short-term measures. बस. This was the sole purpose of short-term stabilization function. On the other hand, structural reforms policies are long-term measures. ठीक है? aimed at improving the efficiency of economy and increasing its international competitiveness by removing rigidity in various segments of Indian economy. The government initiated a variety of policies which fall under the head of liberalization, privatization, and globalization. So this is why there was a need, ठीक है, there was a need for a new economic policy. ठीक है, the new economic policy लाने का मकसद क्या था? उसका लाने का मकसद था so that our economy can open up to new avenues, right, and it can become more stable. Actually, let's look at each and every reforms. सबसे पहले liberalization. As pointed out, rules and laws were aimed at regulating the economic activities, ठीक है, which became a major hindrance in the growth and development. Liberalization was introduced to put an end on these restrictions and open up various sectors. Though a few liberalization measures were introduced in 80s, ठीक है, a much more comprehensive policies were introduced in 1991. चलिए एक एक करके हर एक सेक्टर में, ठीक है, हर एक सेक्टर में सर कैसे लिबरलाइजेशन हुआ देखते हैं. सबसे पहले सर इंडस्ट्रियल सेक्टर. In India, regulatory mechanisms were enforced in various ways. Industrial licensing, under which every entrepreneur had to get permission from government to start a firm, close a firm, or even decide what amount of goods to be produced. ठीक है? Private sector was not allowed in many industries. Some goods could be only produced through small scale industries, and control on price fixation, determination, distribution. ये क्या हो रहा है? Sorry guys, ये ऑटोमेटिकली आगे बढ़ गया. सर कहाँ थे हम? यहाँ थे. Right. हाँ अब नहीं हो रहा है, अब नहीं हो रहा है. पता नहीं कभी कभी क्या हो जाता है सर, टेक्नोलॉजी भी कभी कभी साथ नहीं देती है. कोई बात नहीं. Alright, these were the restrictions. Okay, these were the regulations that was imposed on the industrial sector. Okay, तो अब करना चाह रहा तो अब हो नहीं रहा है ये आगे. चलिए, so economic policies, ठीक है, the reform policies introduced in and after 1991 removed many of these restrictions. Industrial licensing was abolished for almost all products except for few, such as alcohol, cigarettes, hazardous chemical, industrial explosives, electronics, aerospace and drugs, which are crucial. इन सब के लिए लाइसेंसिंग जरूरी भी है, और else क्या हो सकता है दुरुपयोग. The only industries which are now reserved in public are parts of different. Excuse me. Now the only sectors which public, that means the government handle, is defense and atomic energy. ठीक है. Many goods produced by small scale industries now have been de-reserved. In many industries, the market has been allowed to determine the prices. So financial sector में क्या हुआ? Financial sector includes financial institutions such as commercial banks, investment banks, stock, and whatnot. ठीक है. The financial sector in RBI was regulated by sorry, the financial sector in India was regulated by the RBI. Now, the role of RBI, ठीक है? The role, the role of RBI also changed. ठीक है? The role of RBI also changed over the years. One of the major aims of financial sector reform is to reduce the role of RBI from regulator to facilitator. This means financial sector may be allowed to take decisions on many matters without consulting the RBI. The reform policies led to establishment of private sector banks, okay, India as well as foreign. Foreign investment limit was raised to 74% in such banks. Those banks which fulfill certain conditions had freedom, okay, to set up new branches without the approval of RBI. Then, so tax reforms. Yeah, tax reforms क्या है? Just a second, guys. Speak minute. There's something wrong with the tablet. Just a second. Let me configure it again. कुछ तो गड़बड़ हो रही है. एक मिनट guys. ठीक है. Okay. Let's look if this works. ठीक है. So जी वर्क तो कर रहा है. ठीक है. So let's assign it. Just a second, guys. कभी कभी पता नहीं. So let's check it working. ठीक है. Now it is working. Yeah. So tax reforms. ठीक है. टैक्स रिफॉर्म्स कौन कौन से लाए गए सर? टैक्सेस में क्या चेंजेस आए? ठीक है. टैक्सेस में क्या चेंजेस आए? इट इज इम्पोर्टेंट कि हम एक चीज समझें दैट गवर्नमेंट की इनकम दो चीजों से होती है. गवर्नमेंट का रेवेन्यू जो रहता है, ठीक है, गवर्नमेंट का रेवेन्यू दो चीजों से होता है, टैक्स एंड एक नॉन टैक्स, राइट? नाउ the tax is actually the major source of government's income. अब ड्यूरिंग द पोस्ट पीरियड, ठीक है, 1950 to 1990, सर ये पीरियड में टैक्सेस वर वेरी हाई. सर आप 40 to 50% इनकम टैक्स एक्सपेक्ट कर सकते हो ये पीरियड का. ठीक है. सो ड्यू टू दिस क्या होता था? So many of the people used to evade, okay, used to evade tax because just imagine if your income is suppose 10 lakhs per annum, ठीक है, and जनरल एक जनरल आइडिया लेने के लिए, ठीक है, let's say कि फ्लैट रेट लग रहा है, we know that slab rate है, but let's say for example simplicity के लिए flat rate 50% is the tax, ठीक है. So if you are earning 10 lakhs, ठीक है, 5 lakhs आपको टैक्स के फॉर्म में देना पड़ा था. अब अगर ऐसा हो रहा है, so you are not comfortable, no one would be comfortable, right? So there was a need of tax reforms, ठीक है, there was a need of tax reforms and rates को उसके बाद में कम किए गए with the view that more people will now come and pay tax and people will stop evading taxes, ठीक है. Similarly सब corporate taxes भी कम किए गए, ठीक है, corporate taxes भी कम किए गए and recently क्या introduce हुआ, recently क्या introduce हुआ, GST. Then foreign exchange. So foreign exchange में क्या, the first important reform in the external sector was made in the foreign exchange market in 1991. As an immediate measure to resolve the balance of payment crisis, the rupee was devalued. देखिए अब सर फॉरेन एक्सचेंज में क्या सर रुपी को डिवैल्यूएट किया, रुपी को गिरा दिया. देखिए अगर कोई चीज कोई कंट्री की करेंसी सस्ती है तो यू विल बी अट्रैक्टेड, ठीक है. इससे क्या एक्सपोर्ट्स को बढ़ावा मिला, इससे क्या मिला एक्सपोर्ट्स को बढ़ावा मिला. देन ट्रेड एंड इन्वेस्टमेंट पॉलिसीज में क्या रिफॉर्म्स आए, लिबरलाइजेशन ऑफ ट्रेड एंड इन्वेस्टमेंट regime was initiated to increase international competitiveness, ठीक है. It opened up the barriers, ठीक है, it opened up the barriers for each and every each and every trader, ठीक है. The aim was to promote the efficiency of local industry and adoption of modern technology in order to impact domestic industries, ठीक है. In order to protect domestic industries, India was following a regime of quantitative restriction on import. This was encouraged through tight control over imports by keeping tariffs high. This policy reduced the efficiency and competitiveness of the manufacturing sector. देखिए एक हद तक का ये सही था, बट वही चीज है ना सर, एक कोई भी पॉलिसी लॉन्ग टर्म आप नहीं चला सकते, उसमें क्या फेरबदल करनी पड़ती रहती है, राइट. उसमें क्या फेरबदल करनी जरूरी होती है. So the trade policy reforms aimed at dismantling quantitative restrictions on import and reduction of tariffs. Then privatization. Privatization क्या है? So simply privatization simply means what? Giving up ownership, ठीक है, from what? From public to private. अब गवर्नमेंट अपनी ओनरशिप कैसे कर सकती है ट्रांसफर सर, पहले तो विड्रॉ कर ले या तो फिर सेल कर दे, ठीक है. सबसे पॉपुलर क्या है, सेल. इसे क्या कहते हैं, डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट. इसे हम क्या कहते हैं, इसे हम कहते हैं डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट, ठीक है. Now why there was disinvestment, because government thought, ठीक है, that the private people are more confident, ठीक है, are more confident and more capable of managing the capital and the management of the whole company, ठीक है. That's why public sector privatized each and every industry, right. Then And globalization. Although globalization to mean is generally understood that integration of economic gen, sorry, it is generally the integration of economy of a country with the world economy. Alright, generally क्या to open up the gates, simply opening up the gates of one's one's country. ठीक है? To open up the gates of one country to the world economy. That is simply what is globalization. It involves creation of networks and activity transcending economic, social, and geographical boundaries. Globalization attempts to establish links in such a way that happenings in India can be influenced by happenings in other countries. It is turning world into one huge market. And one of the outcome one of the outcome of globalization was outsourcing. See, then sir, are there anything interesting? So economic growth after the policy they gave. So till 1991, our GDP was 5.6. When when new economic policy was implemented, ठीक है, there was significant growth, except for 1 year. But after that, again, our GDP kept on rising. Right? Even even FDI, ठीक है, even FDI increased to 100 million. ठीक है, from 100 million to 30 billions. ठीक है, and our foreign exchange reserve went up from 6 billion to 4.1 billion. बाकी सब चीजें तो रिपीटेड है. We are almost done. We are almost done. We are almost done, guys. चलिए, यहाँ पे क्या होता है सर, यहाँ पे हमारा रिवीजन खत्म होता है. ठीक है, मैराथन सेशन एंड होता है. मैराथन सेशन एंड होता है. हाँ गाइस, मैंने आपको फ्री कंटेंट स्पेशल क्लासेस के बारे में बताया था. आप प्लेटफॉर्म पे जाके हर एक स्पेशल क्लास अटेंड कर सकते हैं. ठीक है, ऑल यू हैव टू डू इज एंटर दिस कोड व्हाइल अनलॉकिंग. ठीक है, SAJYT, बस ये डाल दीजिएगा. आपका क्या सर, आपका फ्री कंटेंट अनलॉक हो जाएगा. ओके, योर फ्री कंटेंट विल बी अनलॉक्ड. दिस कोड कैन आल्सो बी यूज्ड, ठीक है, फॉर अटेंडिंग क्विजेस. क्विज अटेंड करने के लिए भी यही कोड लगेगा आपको. राइट. थैंक यू सो मच गाइस, थैंक यू सो मच फॉर tuning in. I hope you have a great day. Alright, and don't forget, these exams are near. ठीक है, I highly recommend get a subscription. ठीक है, get a 1 month or 3 months plus. 1 month or 3 month plus. ठीक है, use this code. ठीक है, to get yourself a 10% off. बढ़िया, एकदम बढ़िया सर, एकदम बढ़िया. ठीक है, आई होप आप लोगों को सर आज के मैराथन सेशन में मजा आई होगी. ऑलराइट, आप लोगों से कल मुलाकात होगी विद अ न्यू चैप्टर. ठीक है, कल नया नया वीक रहेगा, कल नया चैप्टर शुरू करेंगे. ऑलराइट, इफ यू हैव एनी प्रॉब्लम्स, ठीक है, आप अन अकेडमी के ऐप पे ठीक है, यू कैन रीच आउट ऑन अस फॉर द अनअकैडमी ऐप। क्या करें सर? टू रीच अस, ठीक है, टू रीच मी। सबसे पहले टू डू स्पेशल क्लासेस, सर्च फॉर Saurabh Jaiswal, tap all educators, excuse me, tap on all, tap on all educators, ठीक है। वहां पे सर मेरी प्रोफाइल दिख जाएगी आप लोगों को, ठीक है। प्रोफाइल में जाके आपने मैसेज करना है इफ यू हैव एनी क्वेरीज और एनीथिंग, ठीक, यू कैन डू दिस इफ यू वांट टू रीच अस, ऑलराइट। सो that's it for today guys, that's it for today। I hope आप ऐसे ही हमारे आगे के मैराथन सेशंस भी अटेंड करें। यू कैन ऑल्सो गो एंड वॉच मैक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स, ठीक है सर। मैक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स पे भी क्या है, मैक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स पे भी सर, मैक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स पे भी मैक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स पे भी क्या है गाइस, उस पे भी मैराथन सेशंस है, आप उन्हें भी जाके अटेंड कर सकते हैं, ऑलराइट। आप इवन आप इवन क्या कर सकते हो सर, जो रिवीजन लेक्चर्स होते हैं ऑन प्लस, ठीक है, उन्हें अटेंड करिए या फिर स्पेशल क्लासेस अटेंड करिए। वहां पे भी आपको क्या मिल जाएंगे, वहां पे भी आपको रिवीजन लेक्चर्स मिल जाएंगे, ऑलराइट। सो वी आर गोइंग टू प्रिपेयर अ लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स, साथ ही साथ टेस्ट दीजिए, ठीक है, टेस्ट देते रहिए, क्विजेस आते रहेंगे, आपको प्लेटफॉर्म पे बहुत सारी चीजें मिलेगी, ऑलराइट। स्पेशल क्लास में ही आपको काफी सारी चीजें मिल जाएगी, यू कैन ऑल्सो अटेंड क्विजेस ऑन स्पेशल, ठीक है। आपको क्विज, अगर डेमो क्विज अटेंड करना है, आप स्पेशल स्पेशल क्लासेस अटेंड करिए। आप काम करिएगा, आप मेरी प्रोफाइल विजिट करिएगा, ठीक है, वहां पे यू विल गेट ऑल द लेक्चर्स, ठीक है, यू विल गेट ऑल द लेक्चर्स, एवरीथिंग इज फ्री, ठीक है, एवरीथिंग इज फ्री हो देयर, ठीक है। आप प्रोफाइल विजिट करिए, सारी स्पेशल क्लासेस दिख जाएगी आपको लाइन से, ठीक है। जैसे ही, ठीक है, जैसे ही आपको कोई भी स्पेशल क्लास अटेंड करने के लिए सर एक इनवाइट कोड डालने बोला, ऑल यू हैव टू डू इज टाइप इन SAJT, क्या टाइप करना है, SAJYT, ऑलराइट। सिंपली इसे टाइप कर दीजिए, वो अनलॉक हो जाएगा। वहाँ पे क्विजेस भी रहेंगे, क्विजेस के लिए भी आपने क्या टाइप करना है, SAJYT, ठीक है। इफ इट आस्क फॉर अ वाइट कोड, आपने क्या टाइप करना है, SAJYT, ठीक है। सिंपल सिंपल है गाइस। हमने हमारी प्रिपरेशन तगड़ी रखनी है, सेल्फ स्टडीज को हमेशा ऑन रखना है, सेल्फ स्टडीज में ढिलाई नहीं करें, ठीक है। सेल्फ स्टडीज आर वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, उन्हें उन्हें आप छोड़ नहीं सकते, ठीक है। ट्यूशन के भरोसे, ठीक है, ट्यूशन के भरोसे मार्क्स नहीं आते, मार्क्स किससे आते हैं, सेल्फ स्टडी एंड डिसिप्लिन, ऑलराइट। सो वी वी विल बी हियर टू हेल्प यू आउट इन अचीविंग योर गोल, ठीक है। वी कैन हेल्प यू विद द लास्ट पुश, ठीक है। बट बट सेल्फ स्टडीज करना किसका काम बेटा, आप लोगों को, ठीक है। सो जैसे ही अभी से 22 दिसंबर को अनाउंसमेंट होने वाली है डेट्स की, होपफुली हो जाए बिकॉज काफ़ी टाइम से डिले हो रहा है, काफ़ी टाइम से डिले हो रहा है। पहले 10 तारीख होने वाला थी, फिर 17 तारीख को होने वाली थी, अब 22 बोले हैं। लेट्स सी क्या होता है, लेकिन सो जैसे भी जैसी भी डेट्स आ जाए, जो भी डेट्स आए, हमें प्रिपेयर रहना है, ठीक है। रिविजन्स तगड़ी रखनी है, टेस्ट सीरीज देनी है जितनी हो सके। हैव प्रॉपर टाइम मैनेजमेंट इन योर हैंड्स, ठीक है। हैव प्रॉपर टाइम मैनेजमेंट इन योर हैंड्स। डोंट गेट डोंट गेट लेजी। टेस्ट पेपर देते टाइम डोंट गेट लेजी। ऑलवेज हैव अ प्रॉपर शेड्यूल, ठीक है। ऑलवेज हैव अ प्रॉपर शेड्यूल, डोंट गेट लेजी। टाइम टाइमर लगा के, जितने भी आज का पेपर रहता है टाइमर लगा के काम करो, ठीक है। वॉच योर सेल्फ बिकॉज दिस विल हेल्प यू आउट इन योर फाइनल एग्जाम्स। ऑलराइट, चलिए आप लोगों से कल मुलाकात करते हैं अब। ऑलराइट, थैंक यू सो मच गाइस, थैंक यू सो मच फॉर ट्यूनिंग इन। ऑलराइट, मिलते रहेंगे।